Or one of the topics tonight is self-actualization, which supposes that everyone has some kind of a different way to fulfill ourselves, different areas of interests, as well as different skills, tendencies, capability. So let's see if it's true. Who's here a scientist? Okay. Who's here an artist? A business person? Cool. So it works. And who cares about different things? Who cares about pollution? Okay, who cares about politics? Who cares about finance, economy? Who cares about the ocean? Football. Okay. So after we establish that, and there's lots of information I can share with you regarding DAOs. This is going to be my topic, but I wanted to connect to you to something that you can come out from tonight with a tool, with a skill, or with something that you can use in order to achieve this self-actualization goal, apart from other goals that the technology can be used for. So once we begin, and I'll introduce myself, Nave from DAOstack. And it says head of business development. The way I see business development in this context means to connect technology and solutions to people's problems. So technology on its own can't stand alone. It has to be used. Otherwise, it's not doesn't feel its full potential. So whenever you create something, a technology, a product, solution, you have to find people to use that. In order for that, you need to understand what people need. So this is the connection that I'm in charge of. And this is what I'm also trying to tell you today. So let's begin. The first slide, this is the message I want to leave you with, which is, activate your community with Alchemy. So Alchemy is a tool with which you can actually activate communities of people in a decentralized way. And this is the practical tool that I'm going to share with you tonight. And I would like you to think of things that you would fulfill with your communities that you share your interest with in your own way, in your own tendencies. So DAOstack, what it does, it builds this stack of solutions, which at the top there's the DAOs, which are the decentralized organizations. And when we say DAOs here, we mean people's DAOs. DAOs that are made of different people, not necessarily different computers, although it's also possible. Examples for that are the DAOs that we created, Genesis DAO, which is the first one I'm going to share, and the DX DAO, which I'll share at the end. Below that, there's the apps, decentralized apps. So like you have apps on your computer or on your phone, all of them are centralized in the sense that they keep their data, and they have someone centralized entity has an ownership over the data, over the platform, and so on. In decentralized applications, so the DAO can control, an application can control its code, authorities, to perform different activities there, and the data is decentralized as well. And below that, there are the layers which help you build on top of these functionalities. So ArcDB is the decentralized database. ArcJS allows you to build applications, and Arc and Infra actually allow you to connect the decision-making engine that we're building to whatever application that you have, which doesn't have to be related or doesn't have to use any of the other tools. So what is a DAO actually, in our sense, in our context? A DAO is a bunch of people represented by their Ethereum address or blockchain address, blockchain wallet, which can be, you can imagine it as my bank account, in a sense that the interaction between people and the DAO are actually transactions. So in this case, you see a list of people from the interface of the application, a list of people with their name sometimes, but mostly their address, their reputation within the DAO, their reputation score in percentage. So if there's 100 people, each has 1%. And this is dynamic as well. And you have on the top right corner, you have the status of the DAO funds. You can see there's 100 Ether there, something around 10,000 US dollar at the moment. And why do we need these Ethereum addresses? Because what happens in the DAO, anyone can make a proposal by clicking this button here. A proposal means that you're proposing something, suggesting something that the DAO would spend the money on, and it can be anything, and I'll touch on that going forward. But what's important is that DAOs are actually organization of people with a shared goal and with some shared resource or asset. This is a screenshot from today. You can see there's 122 members on this DAO. This is an exemplary, a good example of a proposal, and I'll touch more about how proposals work going forward, but this is an example of a proposal that someone asked for 50 Ether. Anyone familiar with Ethereum has an Ethereum address, a wallet? Okay. So this is again something in the 5,000 US dollars today. And you can see the number of votes here out of the organization. It's something between 22% and 20% against. And you see 30 comments there. So this is, imagine a debate on some proposal from the government entity, finance. They give the budget. There's some deliberation on the proposal. There's some debate. So this all happens here. So someone proposes something and everybody can talk about it, discuss on that. And eventually, once the proposal passed, so automatically it cannot be stopped. No one centrally can stop it. The funds are transferred to the one who proposed, and they can fulfill whatever they proposed. And the assumption is that only proposals that would benefit the organization and the shared goal of the organization would pass and would be fulfilled. Now, why do we need this organization, right? If we are, let's say, 4 people, we have a shared goal. We want to create this kind of event as of today. So we can, and we have a budget for that. We have a shared budget. We don't need any system for that, right? We can talk between ourselves. Everyone would say their vote, would say their opinion, and then we can operate on that. But what happens if we become, if we become a very large organization, like, right, solving something bigger, like we said, pollution or global warming requires more people. So now everybody needs to take a look at every decision, any proposal. It also doesn't make sense because we don't work full time on everything that we do. And if we had to, this wouldn't work. So it's not really scalable doing this offline or doing this directly. And what the blockchain allows is for us to do a massive collaboration on scale in a decentralized manner. So people can be in different countries, different continents, and still trust the system for making transaction of money in the case of Bitcoin. But here, they can collaborate with shared resources by trusting the rules of the game that the protocol provides. And without going too technically into the protocol, you can imagine what happens if you add another layer of people who are kind of auditors. We call them predictors. So they would look at proposals from this large organization, and they would boost them in a sense that they would stake their funds on the proposals that they deem most important for the organization's success. And by that, they will bring them to the attention of the organization. So if we're all talking about different things here, different conversation, we want to nail down or to spot the most relevant topics, the most important ones for the organization, to make shared collective decisions upon. And this is done through this boosting process, where these predictors are curating, are selecting the important proposals for debate, and then the big DAO, the community, can make a decision on first on the most top priority proposals. So actually, it's an attention market. Before we talked about different areas of interest that we all have. So the competition is actually not necessarily on the resources, but it's on my attention, on people's attention. So how do you maximize people's attention in an organization and allows it to grow massively? So again, how exactly do you activate your community? So first, what's the difference between organizations that activate their communities and organizations that don't? So the world's most dynamic projects are user-driven. You can think of the most obvious examples, which I'll show you in a second, but what projects with their user communities that are empowered, so they have some resource, some asset, some funds. They're coordinated, so they work together. They're not working in different directions, although they can do locally, but in the big scope, they're coordinated towards a shared goal. They're scalable, again, they can grow very fast. And they're decentralized in the sense that no one holds a central point of power over the organization. Imagine if we all shared a fund for doing work for our organization, but it would be, the money would be in a bank account. The funds would be in a bank account. Some individual will have better access to those funds than the rest of the organization, which doesn't happen in this case. And examples for that, for these kinds of empowered communities, are Reddit, Apple Store. Who creates content on these platforms? Not Apple, mostly, and not Reddit, mostly. It is the users, the community. And what happens there, the people are, the users are very much engaged. So there's a high growth. Whereas communities that are not, projects that do not activate their communities are struggling, and you can think of newspapers or cable TV, where there's a separation between the ones who create the content and the ones who consume. And that, you don't have the same engagement. So I believe personally that we have whatever goal we have, whatever organization we want to create, we need to think of that. How do we allow the community to be engaged, to contribute actively, not to be only passive consumers? And we offer a way, again, to do that. So Mobula is your organization's community with Alchemy, a platform for community DAOs. So DAOs, again, decentralized autonomous organizations. And this is how Alchemy looks. So you can see that anyone can make a proposal on a project, even someone from outside the organization. If you have something to say about this goal, so in this case, Genesis DAO, the first DAO that we created in DAOstack, actually serves for the proliferation and to promote the concept of DAOs, specifically the DAO of the Genesis DAO, and also, of course, the success of the project itself. Now, anyone with an Ethereum address can come and ask for a reputation in this DAO. Anyone can come and make a proposal, and if your proposal passes, then you get the funds and you can go do the work that you promised to do. Proposals have unlimited scope, so if, again, you're an artist and you have a nice way to represent ideas, concepts, you can do that, and there's an example for that. If you're a finance person, you can make some planning for the organization. If you're a coder, you can create code, you can propose for code. If you're an event organizer and you're organizing people, you can make that. And these things happen. Proposals are passed by the community vote. Nobody can grab funds from the organization without the consent of the community. And again, it doesn't have to be 51%, what we call quorum. This is maybe the main thing that the protocol holographic consensus that sits inside the solution actually allows. That even if 100,000 people are sharing the same DAO, and I make a proposal and 20 people vote for it, but it's 19 people, or in the sum of the reputation, I have a relative majority, even if it's not 50% of the organization, it will still pass, and it will be still aligned with the shared goal of the organization, which is very important. So it is both scalable and resilient to manipulations and to attacks. So just to see here, so you can see the reputation reward. Every proposal that I make, I ask for reputation as well. Reputation gives me more voting power. And the funds. I need the address, and I put some URL for the link for the proposal description. And as you can see, as you can see here, there's lots of proposals currently on the app. So there's hundreds of huge numbers of proposals. Boosted proposals, as I said, are the ones that go to the top. And even with the high activity levels, Alchemy stays efficient. And you can see it here. In a second, I'll show you some data from that. Now, you can ask why blockchain, and I touched on that before. So again, today, people collaborate, and they have shared funds sometimes in an organization. But again, someone always has a direct access, which is preferable to others. The blockchain allows you to make it really decentralized. And for people around the world to collaborate, I'm here, someone from Brazil, someone from China, and we can collaborate without having to go through any bank, any government entity, any other platform actually, which is quite amazing. And all the records of the organization, all the books, what did we spend the money on, what were the discussions, and so on, everything is by definition on the records, open, transparent, and this also increases the trust people have for the organization. A word about soft governance, because I've been talking about technology all the time. But what we learned in our experiment on the Genesis DAO is that there's a big layer of soft governance, which means people who emerge as leaders in an organization without being given power, but it's something important for the organization. They drive it to different places. Emergent culture, suddenly the culture is created. And to remember that DAOs consist of people with needs, and the needs are emotional. So this also returns again to the question of self-actualization, where everyone can have, if I have an idea, but I don't have the tools or the skills or the knowledge to fulfill this idea, I can propose that. And if it passes, someone can grab that, and they have the coding skill or the content writing skill or marketing skill or arts, and they can fulfill that. So, just some numbers on the Genesis experiment. So, 230 proposals within a few months, 60 Ether, which is around $13,000 per month, were spent. It remained decentralized. Now there's 120 people. From the beginning there were 54, so high growth in numbers, but it's still decentralized. No one holds a majority power. And these are some examples of proposals that passed. So 2 months ago there was this event. Some of the speakers are similar to today. This event was organized by someone from the community DAO. Again, he's not an employee of one organization, he's just a member of the DAO. He proposed, let's do an event. He got the funds and he organized that. Someone said, let's create an explorer. He was a coder, he is a coder. They're coders, they wanted to make an explorer by which you can analyze these 130 or more proposals and make analysis on them and see what drives people to vote for and against and what kind of topics. And so they built this explorer on, again, the funds of the organization after they passed this proposal. accountability task force. This is the proposal that I showed you in the beginning that has had this discussion, 30 comments, and very tight voting results. So this was actually for 50 Ether, and they got even more. They are doing actually this soft governance. They define the culture, they do accountability work, which means if I made a proposal, they want to see that I actually performed, fulfilled it, and also creating, again, promoting this. This is the feed. Here you can see the different proposals that are active now. And if I go to history, I can find all the proposals that are actually have been decided upon before. And you have, sorry about the connection, maybe a little bit slow. This is the button on which I can create a proposal. As you can see, I can say summarize my proposal. Sorry, I think the connection here is a little bit slow, so we're not going to do that. I can show you later on if you like.
Yeah, maybe you can show to the interested ones during the break how it works.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm also encouraging you to check it out. Any questions? I love to hear your questions. Yes, please. Do we have time?
Hi, thanks for your presentation and your explanation about the DAOstack. I was wondering, it's a nice experiment, and the voting should be more or less done. But how is it funded? Because
good question. Yeah. So the question is, how is it funded? So when I said top down and bottom up, this also is a way to look at it. An organization can decide. An organization that has a community of users or employees can decide to allocate funds to this DAO, to a DAO. And this DAO can be aimed at empowering, again, and improving or fulfilling the direction of that organization. So they can fund it just in order for the community to be able to make decisions in a decentralized way. So it can be a community of customers of an organization, or just as the people who are influenced. So people from a city, residents of a city.
Yeah. And is there a relation between the funding that people do and the reputation they get?
Definitely not. This is the difference of the holographic consensus protocol and the reputation system, that there is no link between the amount of funds that I have and the reputation. You cannot buy reputation and you cannot sell reputation. The only way to get or to lose reputation is by a proposal decided by the DAO. So if someone new comes to the organization, even if they're a billionaire, the only way for them to join our community DAO would be for us to vote for that. And if and by definition, we only vote if we believe this person will bring value to the organization. And the other way to fund an organization is bottom up. So think of subscription, think of us contributing to philanthropy or to NGOs. We contribute, we donate, and we expect to see social impact happens. But here, instead of funding the pyramid of management of the NGO, we can rid of that. We can only fund actual activity. Yes?
Could you make a little bit more specific and say this specific DAO, Genesis point blah blah blah?
Yeah.
What is the goal of that DAO and how did that DAO got funded?
So the Genesis DAO was funded and founded until now by the DAOstack Technologies company, and the purposes of it, as I mentioned before, are first of all to help the success of the DAO, the Genesis DAO itself, the concept of DAOs, to create more DAOs, and in the same way also contribute to the economy, to the Gen economy, this Predictors networks economy, because this is the way it got its funding in the first place, obviously, and the success of this community also very indirectly helps the organization in that way as well.
the sandbox to try that?
You can, yeah, of course it's an experiment as well. But it's not only an experiment because you see the way it operates, the Genesis DAO, is in a flat way. And there's different directions that people want to take this. And this is quite similar to how the company or the smaller team works, in the way that there's it also as an experiment, but also as a real part of the organization. It contributes, as I showed. Someone makes an event. It's not just an experiment. It's a real event, like tonight.
And on February 5th in Amsterdam in the Nieuwe Liefde, we will be hosting a whole event that's also aimed at finding new economical structures and the question how they get funded. So we will work that out with a group of 250 people, February 5th.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Nave. And thank you to everybody. Yeah.